Ripple has always tried to downplay Bitcoin in favor of their token, XRP, centralization. Am I right? But here we have real evidence of Ripple Labs actually sabotaging Bitcoin adoption in the US. Is this a coordinated attack or just business as usual for the grifters? Let's dive into it. First things first, let's understand, spend 30 seconds, what is XRP? Basically, Ripple Labs created a token called XRP with the sole goal of replacing the SWIFT network. You know, the centralized network that was built in the 70s. I think actually the same year as the car phone or the giant brick mobile phone. Yes, this is how the majority of money is moved around the world today. So, a noble mission to try to replace it. However, you and I know Bitcoin could do it better, but they've spent millions, tens of millions lobbying governments and bankers alike to get their token replacing the SWIFT network. What we're talking about today is understanding how and more importantly, why XRP or Ripple Labs is actively trying to sabotage Bitcoin adoption in the US government. So as we said, XRP here down 90% from all-time highs. Bitcoin currently sitting at all-time high in fiat terms. XRP is down 90% in Bitcoin terms. What does this tell us? It means if you sold Bitcoin for XRP at any point, especially at the all-time high, but really at any point other than in the last 6 months, you would have lost Bitcoin. This is worse than the casino. XRP is centralized garbage. This chart proves it. Now, maybe you aren't in it for number go up. Maybe you believe in the mission because they're going to build this incredible ledger to actually speed up international payments. Well, let me disappoint you. XRP is a way to transfer wealth from ignorant retail investors to Ripple's execs. Every dollar you use to buy XRP is a dollar you can't use to buy Bitcoin. Most people still don't understand the significance of XRP's 32,569 missing ledgers. What this means is they have lost literally 32,000 blocks on their blockchain. However, they are now taking the money they are scamming from investors, retail investors, and actively funding a FUD campaign against Bitcoin. This is a huge problem. Ripple co-founder Chris Larsen donated $5 million to Green Space to commission this art piece and a PR campaign to spread lies about Bitcoin's energy use, even though Bitcoin mining is good for the environment and power grid. Let's unpack that just a minute. If you fall into this camp, if you think for a second that Bitcoin is bad for the environment, let me enlighten you. Bitcoin mining is the only industry on planet Earth that actually incentivizes and has a free market economic behind finding, resourcing, and researching new energy technologies. What this means is as you innovate inside the energy creation or energy mining space, as you make that more efficient, you get more Bitcoin. This is a perfectly aligned incentive system which encourages people to spend their hard-earned money on innovating inside the power creation space. What it doesn't do is require taxpayers to pay for some inefficient, bloated organization to do a bunch of research. And here we have the co-founder of Ripple actively trying to spread lies. They're just lying at this point. Bitcoin is good for the earth. Anyone who wants to argue that, please comment down below right now. Let's get on a pod. Let's get on a live stream. Let's talk it out. But let's keep moving on. Because what really got my attention was Jack Mallers calling an emergency press conference, very Dave Portnoy of him, talking about Ripple actively trying to sabotage the Bitcoin strategic reserve inside the US government. Let's take a look.
Ripple is undermining American prosperity and freedom. I can confirm Ripple is actively spending millions of dollars trying to undermine a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the United States of America. This is not just an attack on Bitcoin, but on principles of transparency, on fairness, and on our national security. In 1933, the US made an economic announcement. What was it? We're confiscating your gold. In 1971, the US made an economic announcement. What was it? We're divorcing ourselves from the gold standard. We're divorcing ourselves from being governed by the immutable laws of Mother Nature so that we can debase your money and inflate your life. In 2008, the US made an economic announcement. What was it? We are bailing out and protecting private corporations, banks, and Wall Street at the expense of you, the public.
So Jack's going on to describe here kind of 4 key economic announcements over the last 100 years. 1, we're taking your gold. 2, gold is no longer relevant to print money. 3, we're using all that fake debased money to bail out the bankers that made a bad decision. And then he's suggesting that 4 could be U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. But here we see Ripple trying to undermine that.
If the U.S. goes on to make an economic announcement that is the support of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it will not act against its people in the best interest of the public. It will do the opposite. This is a money that is owned, operated, and governed by the people. Governments and corporations own a fraction of this network. Who owns it? Who had first access? The people, the public. A money that we don't control, but that we support, that both aids to solve our country's biggest problems and promotes the world we want to see as Americans and its people.
Jack then goes on to describe some of the most valuable points about Bitcoin. Lots of stuff we just said. Launching value into the future, actually understanding what it means to get off of a debt-based system and into a prosperity system towards abundance. We all want a world full of abundance. A Bitcoin standard helps us get there. And then we talk about Ripple.
Ripple is a for-profit company.
This is the first, they are not the same. People that try to compare XRP to Bitcoin cannot be looking that deep because it is equivalent to comparing Facebook and the internet protocol. You are not the same thing. One is a business with employees and a throat to choke and can go broke. A protocol was always going to be there. This is the fundamental difference between Bitcoin and literally every other token. It is a protocol that will always be there.
It prints its own token in XRP, and it is asking the US government to support its monopoly. I ask you this, why should the US government back a privately owned currency? This is corporate lobbying disguised as innovation. This is corporate lobbying disguised as tech, growth, jobs, industry. Ripple created all of its currency, issued it to themselves, and relies on the public to buy it. This is not the money for the people. This is not in the best interest of the public. This is in the best interest of a private corporation. It is absurd and ridiculous, and Ripple needs to stand down immediately. Not only are they undermining future prosperity in the United States, benefiting from the technological innovation that is Bitcoin, but they are also trying to take advantage of the situation and benefit themselves.
But here we have, I think this is said so perfectly. Not only are you preventing the US from getting this, you're actually forcing them down a path that is worse. You're not only preventing sound money on the reserve for the future, you're preventing that. That in and of itself is bad. But you're also enabling more grifters, more scammers, and less sovereignty for the future. This is a compounding negative effect.
Call your representatives and demand an investigation into Ripple's lobbying efforts. Tweet publicly. Post your comments publicly. I've begun fighting back. I will not stand for this. I am an American. I plan to have children and raise them in America. I will not let Ripple undermine our prosperity, freedom, and benefiting from Bitcoin, a neutral, fair money for the people, for the public. Because this isn't just about Bitcoin versus Ripple. It's about whether the future of money belongs to the people or to private corporations.
Boom. The people or private corporations. We have a choice today. Anyways, you can choose to opt in to Bitcoin in self-custody. But as the US looks, and as Trump, a centralized individual prone to greed, if we rely on them, we're going to have problems. In the comments, we have Ripple fighting Bitcoin is like throwing rocks at a freight train. Yeah, except for the rocks that they're throwing, they're actually throwing rocks at the freight train driver. They're throwing rocks at the person in control of the freight train. Obviously, rocks cannot stop Bitcoin. However, rocks thrown in the right direction could put up some massive problems for Bitcoin in the freight train. Here's Brad with some thoughts on maximalism. Let me say this as clearly as I can. The crypto industry has a real shot here and now to achieve the many goals we have in common if we work together instead of tearing each other down. This is not and never will be a zero-sum game. I own XRP, BTC, and ETH. 2 of those 3 things suck. And among a handful of others, all the other things suck. We live in a multi-chain world, and I've advocated for a level playing field instead of one token versus another. Sure, I actually would agree with that last part of that sentence. We should have a level playing field. May the best man win. However, this is not a level playing field. XRP literally grifts its customers, grifts its token holders, and uses that money to lobby the government. Satoshi did no such thing. Satoshi, or even Bitcoin broadly, has no marketing department. There is no lobby capability from the Bitcoin protocol because it is a protocol. If this were a level playing field, XRP would be dead. Long gone. ETH, same thing. All the other tokens that Brad Garlinghouse owns would be gone on a level playing field. If a government digital asset reserve is created, I believe it should be representative of the industry, not just to one token. Okay, here we have a massive confusion. This is a fiat brain disease at its finest. We look at this national digital asset reserve as an investment for our future, the same way that the US government might own other assets to propel it into the future. But I suspect this man would be irate if they bought Tesla, Amazon, and Facebook stock, private corporations held by the public. The US government, frankly, has no business owning a centralized asset like Facebook, Tesla, Amazon, any of the other Fortune 500 companies. So why, ladies and gentlemen, would we want the government to also own a token, a centralized token that has no value over and above being a centralized token? We don't need an asset to represent an industry. We need an asset to represent humanity. Human value is at stake here. When you and I go to work and we spend our time and we create value for someone, they give us money for that value. We want to protect that. Most people need to touch the hot stove before they truly learn anything. Most humans have a hard time connecting dots and learning from others' mistakes. This is why we will continually fall for fiat scams and shitcoin lies. In other words, it's easier to trick somebody than to convince someone that they've been tricked. We see this time and time and time again. So anyways, thought kind of for today is not so much whether or not Ripple is bad or Bitcoin is good. That ship has sailed. That's a foregone conclusion. The question here is, how do you and I, as convicted sovereignty warriors, independence maxis, if you will, how do we actually push this education forward? Forget adoption. I frankly couldn't care less if Bitcoin adoption didn't happen for 50 years. I think that's worse for the world, but I couldn't care less. What I care deeply about is that people actually take a first principle approach and educate themselves towards why Bitcoin changes the world and why Ripple and other coins like it don't, and actually understand why it's better for humanity. So what have you found success with? How do you orange pill your friends? I'm not talking like orange pill, they bought the ETF, they believe Bitcoin could be good. How do you actually unplug someone from the matrix and help them understand that a first principle approach to life, including money, is the obvious right one? How do we actually, what does the system need to look like to actually create an environment to bring us towards a Bitcoin standard? Rather than this current fiat system, which creates some very misaligned incentives and frankly inhibits our ability to be prosperous. So please, enlighten me down below. I spend time making these videos. We run a local meetup here in Edmonton. We know I'm building a platform to enable people to have independence, to have Bitcoin in self-custody. But let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and other stuff that we do at Get Based, please let me know. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, all the rest of it. Follow me on Twitter if you want to, @AdamO'Brien_, but more importantly on Nostr, primal.net/Adam. Thanks so much for watching and stay sovereign.